Hi, Movie Review is here. Today I am going to explain an American supernatural drama film called 9 Days. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie is set in a dystopian world where unborn souls are tested for 9 days. If the souls pass the tests, they are given the chance to live in the real world. However, the ones that do not pass the tests perish forever. The ones that eventually get to live in the real world have no memory of this interview either. A man named Will, who lives in an isolated house in the middle of an unknown desert, is the arbiter of souls. Will judges souls and decides which ones get to inhabit the bodies of living beings. He interviews souls for a chance to be born in the real world. Not all candidates make the cut, but Will gives them each an experience of their choosing before their existence is erased forever. The only eternal company Will has is a man named Ko, a supervisor who makes sure Will selects the best candidate and assists him with the process before becoming an evaluator for unborn souls. Will previously lived as a normal human, but Ko has never gotten to live as a living being. Will spends most of his time watching and taking notes on a multitude of old-fashioned television screens, each of which displays the life of a different individual that Will previously selected. Among all the souls he has chosen, a 28-year-old violin prodigy named Amanda is his favorite. One day, while on her way to a concerto, Amanda drives very fast on the highway and crashes into an overpass, resulting in her death. Will is devastated by her death and watches old videos of hers for comfort. However, Will doesn't get much time to mourn Amanda's death, and the following day, new candidates begin arriving to interview for the vacancy Amanda left behind. The candidates include Kane, Anne, Alexander, Mike, and others. The interview lasts for 9 days, during which Will would test their personalities and character. He asks the candidates simple questions about life and has them take notes on what they like or dislike about the lives of others who were chosen. On the first day, Will briefs the candidates about the whole process before starting the interview. Some candidates are more curious than others. Kane asks Will the difference between being here and being alive. When Will reveals that any feeling, sensation, or emotion is much less intense here than in real life, Kane asks him how he is sure about that, and Will is forced to admit that he has the experience of living as a person. Curious, Kane asks what Will achieved as a living person, but Will shuts him down, saying he can't divulge any more personal details. Everyone answers the question in their own way. After finishing the interviews, Will and Ko get on with their daily tasks. Later that evening, the last candidate, Emma, shows up late for the interview. Will is annoyed by Emma's tardiness, but Ko convinces him to let her give the interview. Emma is just as inquisitive as Kane, and she asks if Ko is Will's boss. But Ko quickly corrects her and jokes that if he was, he would never hire Will. Emma also learns that Ko has never been alive. Will then asks her the same moral dilemma question, but Emma refuses to answer because in both instances her son dies. Will tells her that she must answer the question because that's how the question is supposed to be. Emma puts forth her own question and asks if that's how the question is, or that's how cruel the world is. Emma and Will both refuse to answer each other's question, and the interview comes to an end. The next day, Will gives the selected candidates a tour of the house, including the control room, from which Will and Yo keep an eye on the previously selected candidates. He gives the candidate a task to observe people on the TV and make notes on a living being of their choice. While observing a living being, Will notices Mike drawing on his notebook. When Will asks to see it, Mike is initially hesitant, but eventually allows Will to see his art. It is a beautiful sketch of a beach. Later, Will goes through each of their notebooks and assesses them. All of them have written about one specific moment of their choice, except Emma, who has written about a little bit of everything. He then individually returns their notebook back in person, Will advises Emma that she could be more selective. However, Emma can never be bound by anyone. She asks him if the candidates he selected remember him. Will answers in a negative, but he also mentions Amanda momentarily remembering him in her childhood. Meanwhile, Kane asks Will if there's any area in which he should work on. However, Will tells him not to think that way. Will says he doesn't want Kane to do what Will thinks is right. He wants Kane to do what he deep down feels is right. Not satisfied by his response, Kane points out how Will is going to judge him in the end anyway, and asks Will to tell him the rules so he can play the game better. As expected, Will doesn't reveal the rules, and he gives the candidates new assignments. He asks the candidates to pick a moment they didn't like from what they saw on the screen. After examining their answers, Will decides to eliminate Mike. A tearful. Mike asks what he did wrong, but Will gives him his same standard answer. Will tries to comfort him and commends him for living every second there with intensity and honesty, before asking him to choose a moment that he wants to experience from what he saw on the TV. Later that night, Emma overhears Will and Keilu working in the middle of the night. After learning that they are working to give Mike a special farewell, Emma offers to help. While working, Keilu shares that if given a chance, he would love to yell like Tarzan from the top of a mountain. Emma then asks Will which moment he would choose, but an irritated Will doesn't have time for her questions and tells her to just focus on the work. After finishing the work, Keilu tells Emma that Will is the only interviewer who gives his candidates a chance to experience a real-world moment. He also reveals that when Will was alive, he was too good, kind, and sensitive. Will was talented, but struggled to fit into a world that was different from him. He had so much love in him, but no one to give it to. Will was a simp. The next day, Will checks the assignment of the remaining candidates. Kane tells him about the kid named Rick, who is a frequent target of bullies. He continues that he doesn't like the fact that Rick doesn't fight back more than the fact that other children bully Rick. Kane says that if he was in Rick's place, he would hit the bullies back. When Will questions him if he justifies violence, Kane replies that self-defense is justice. When it is Emma's turn, she describes a guy that hates himself. She says that the guy thinks he is a failure and everything he does is worthless and shameful. Emma said she empathizes with the guy for having gone through so much to the point that he just wants to feel nothing anymore. She further adds that the numbness may make him feel safe, but it is also poisoning what's left of him. She says that deep inside the man, he knows it too. Will realizes that Emma is describing him, but stops short of acknowledging it. He says that the man she is describing sounds irreparable. Emma quickly responds that the man thinks he is irreparable, but she believes that there's still something left inside of him. Will then excuses himself to bid Mike goodbye. With the help of Keilu, Emma follows him to a secret room where Will gives the candidates their final experience before they disappear forever. Emma watches in astonishment as Mike experiences the beach Will created for him. Will then sits with a tearful Mike as he is lost forever. Afterwards, an emotional Will returns to the TV room and sits with Emma. He tells her that when he was alive, he used to be a part of a theater group in high school. He reveals he didn't have any friends, and he once gave a theater performance that made him feel alive, but he never pursued his passion after that. In between taking interviews, Will continues to watch old videos of Amanda to figure out how she crashed her car. Will eventually discovers that Amanda deliberately crashed her car and committed suicide. Will is shocked by the revelation and blames himself for sending Amanda into the cruel world unprepared. As a result, Will starts fearing a similar fate for a kind-hearted Emma. He gives her tough scenarios, but she always chooses kindness and love. During the course of the interview, Maria falls in love with Will. She writes him a letter and expresses her love. However, Will turns her down and eliminates her. After experiencing her final moment, Maria breaks into tears and pleads with Will to give their love a chance. But Will heartlessly watches her disappear into the air. All of this leads to Will and Caillou getting into an argument. Caillou accuses Will of shutting himself off and confronts him about his intentions to eliminate a good candidate like Emma. Will argues that he can't keep sending flowers to the real world, while other interviewers send pigs that eat them. They eventually cool down and again start discussing Amanda. Will admits that, just like him, Amanda must have felt immense pain that no one could see with their eyes. Will ultimately decides to burn all of Amanda's tapes and move on. Moreover, over the course of the next few days, most of the candidates are dismissed for various reasons, such as self-consciousness and lack of respect for suffering. The candidates are eventually narrowed down to 2 Emma and Cain. On the 9th day, Emma finally meets Cain. They both are contrasting in character. Emma is carefree, kind, and sees the best in people. Cain is more pessimistic, recognizing the evil in the world and showing resolve to fight back against it. Over dinner, the two get to know each other. Will makes the two of them sit in a room together and asks them to tell each other why they shouldn't be alive. This naturally makes Emma uncomfortable, and she walks out. Later, despite Kyo recommending that Will pick Emma, Will chooses Cain to be born. Will offers Emma a last experience, and she writes something down on a piece of paper.